Thanks, Sharad, for setting the tone for what I have to say. And a very, very warm welcome once again to all of you. It's a pleasure to see all of you here on a Friday evening. Before I begin into going details in terms of the network, let me ask you one question. Back around a millennial back, what changed the mankind and the way we live was the industrial revolution, or how the industry is impacted. What do you think today, and probably in the next decade or two decade, what is that going to impact and create the major change to what we do? What is that one thing where the economy is getting driven by? I'll try and make it a little, some questions coming from you, some from me, some answers coming, so that we have a lively evening. And then I'll probably go and take you through some of the things that we do, which some of you are aware of it. For the ones who are not aware, I'll share. So the answer to that question, to my mind, would be experience. It has become an experiential economy. Anything that you touch, or anything that you do or want to do in your own ability, or from your organization or your customer's organization capability, is greatly driven by experiences. And what delivers those experiences? The experiences have changed. What used to be physical is a lot more become physical and more social and a lot more digital. So if that divide between physical and digital has actually completely closed, which is the greatest thing that impacts that? It is the networks. Without that network, our ability to communicate with each other hasn't or won't have changed as much as what it has today. And because of this, the experience has changed, and also our own assessment of things is very small. A small experience of you doing a UPI and it not going through, you would want to change the player there. Now, all of these changes, and we work on these kind of projects from a network perspective, while at the base layer, these are networks, but these are the kind of impacts that we want to create, and we create for some of our customers, and many of our partners who deliver this to their end customers. I'm very happy to have some of our great partners here. Ashishji, we were just talking about it. Sanjeev, we were talking about the things that we do. And we also have a lot of people from the partner community who would be looking at seeing what all that we have, and therefore those engagements can prosper further. So with that, let me take through. So on the network side of it, see, there's very important element today, especially in our country. The geography is very wide. So hybrid networks and the access for the hybrid network part becomes very, very important. Like Sharad said, we nearly cover all the pin codes in terms of the service that we do. And in fact, during the discussions, I think Robel was asking me in terms of, how is your spend on the network side of it? See, Sify is very, very interestingly placed. While we began our journey way back from the consumer internet part of it, and probably most of us would have used the iWays. That's the first touch point from the internet part that we had. But from there, we have moved completely, and today, we very proudly call that we are manager of networks. We manage huge networks, our own network. We take network from many of other partners, and that ecosystem, and the kind of service that we deliver is predominantly coming from a purely business-to-business environment. A lot of the larger players that you today see have a very strong consumer-oriented interest, a B2C as you would call, and therefore those networks have been designed, and the access has also been designed to work more in terms of meeting those kind of environments. Whereas what Sify has done, and specifically, for example, if you look as an example on the data center side of it, what we have created is a very interconnected mesh of data centers, ours also, and other data centers also, thereby providing that kind of a resilience. Like Doctor talked about, resilience being one of the key elements, and networks are what are going to bring you those strong resilience environment. So that's what we have built in, and that's where the access environments become a very, very important play. The numbers are there, I'm not throwing those numbers, but yeah, we are one of the largest player there, and one of the most trusted player in terms of the networks. I'll also towards the end talk about some of the larger projects that we are working, and mission critical, nation mission critical, where key elements of what we are getting served are dependent on how Sify's network performs. all of these networks, and as you see, the transformation on the experience is happening. What used to happen, most of your application at some point in time were relying only on the data centers. With the advent of cloud and with the adoption, a lot of applications today that we consume have moved on to the cloud environment, either on IaaS or as SaaS. Therefore, the entire surface layer has changed. What it also means is, when COVID happened and organizations moved around to have work from home, hybrid environment got tested, that increased the surface layer across. The touch points increased, your applications increased, applications were very core to your heart, like a SAP for a manufacturing, versus applications which moved, you were okay, or your customers were okay to move them out. So that changed the entire environments. And as that changed, the mission critical environments also transformed big time. And of course, automations, AI that we've been talking about, how does these networks use all of these key components to bring the best to your customers? So like I said, it's a network, myriad network, managed as a single network, which is giving you many possibilities, and also therefore bringing you multiple products and services around it. It could be the private network, and of course, as you know, like Sify was the first private ISP in the country, Sify is also credited to bring the first MPLS environments. The others actually followed through, and therefore, to the point that Sify is one of the most innovative organizations from a technology side of it. And you have seen the evolution in the last 25 years that we've been listed on NASDAQ. We've constantly evolved to keep up with how the market is changing, how the user experiences are changing, and what is the demand that's coming in. And therefore, you see a myriad of, either it could be a cloud-based environment, so ensuring that the clouds are connected, ensuring the pods are there, ensuring that the security services, like I said, the surface attack is increasing. It is becoming one of the core issues, and it's a boardroom discussion as well. Because if anything goes wrong, for example, ransomware attack, many of your customers would have faced these issues. A lot of this may not come in media, but the way you work as closely with your customers, you would know those kind of threats and the decisions that the customers have taken. And of course, data center, the connectivity across the data center, this also brings to one more important thing in terms of data centers. So we have hyperscalers, which are hosted at the data centers, which essentially means the cloud services or the consumption of those clouds and the adjacency factor of the network. So today, in terms of any application usage, one of the key elements that comes in, again, from the experience part, is the latency. What is the latency to actually access that application? Now, the moment you are in a data center, where some of these hyperscalers are also there, and they are network nodes of those hyperscalers, therefore, your customer's latency or usage of that application hosted on that gives a completely differentiated experience. And that's where, what I was saying, bringing back that to, we have created an environment which takes care of these needs. For example, if you were to look at Mumbai to Pune, while we do not have a Pune data center, but from that perspective, we've created an environment of a latency which is lowest. And why I'm giving Pune and Mumbai as an example, because we're sitting here in Mumbai, and you would have a lot of customers distributed between this. So the next service provider would have at least 0.2 milliseconds of latency higher than how our network has been designed. That's why that B2B orientation of the network is a very, very crucial aspect of it. Now, this is in terms of, so when we're talking about network, obviously the applications are moving, the data is moving outside the country also. So therefore, what are the protection elements within the network? That's one important. And second, how is the traffic, how Sify is enabling that traffic to move out of the country. So we have cable landing stations in Mumbai and Chennai, and we have huge investments in terms of the cables, international cables also. So that's a view in terms of what, as an OEM of the network, what do we bring on the table for you and for your customers? And the path protection is again very important from a resiliency perspective. This is how the way the network has been designed so that your customers are optimally served and resilient environments come in. This is a quick view in terms of the global presence, and this is more in terms of the POPs that we have. So if you have customers who have international presence and you want to give them connectivity on the international side of it, then Sify is a partner that you could look at. And in terms of the capabilities or the capacities, this is multiples of 100 gig is what we have built up, the entire part of it. Now, while this is the infra part that I have shared, so far this is the basic element of the infrastructure. But what happens today these days is, because it's experience, so how is the managed services coming as a layer across this? And why would a customer of yours want to come to you that we have a transformation project and network is a crucial component of that transformation. How are you going to help? So I'm assuming that some of you may not have exposure of network services in your portfolio. Some of you may have a complete portfolio. For the ones who do not have the network portfolio also, how this becomes important and becomes an enabler for the other things that you're bringing for your customers. So from that point of view, do look at what I presented and what I'm going to talk about. So if everything is experience, then what happens from the network point of view is also the outcome. What are the outcomes that get driven? So either it from application perspective, be it cost efficiencies, be putting whatever resources that you have put, you're able to optimally use it. So this is a technology perspective where whatever investments, earlier there was an active passive link, this technology can help put both on active. So let's say assuming that you have taken 100 Mbps or a 500 Mbps dual link your customer has taken, they'll be able to pump the traffic through both. So that is an optimal utilization, which in your consultations and in your discussions with the customer, you can talk about it. And as the entire thing is becoming software defined, so is the architecture enabled to do that. All the modern tools, and let me talk from a network perspective of your end customer. Today, if your customers, anything goes wrong in that organization, which is to do with digital or technology, and if it is not performing well, the first neck to choke will be somebody in the network. Boss, तुम्हारे network में कुछ गड़बड़ है, वहाँ पे problem है, because of which my applications are not working. Now, this is a problem that you can solve for the head of that network business. And how do you do that? So one is in terms of knowing where the problem is, and therefore we provide observability-based tools and environments. The moment you are able to know, your customer is able to know, the time to innocence reduces, which means where the fault is, if it is known, then something to correct it could be done. Now, typically, in a very, very large environments of your customers, this may take anywhere from a 1 day to a 7 day of figuring out what it was. For example, the CloudStrike event happened. The first thing was problem is with the network. Before they realize that everybody's screen has gone blank. So these are the challenges that your customers in those aspects face. And that's where, with these kind of solutions and services, you can go to them and help them overcome that. And of course, we talked about the managed campuses, the managed Wi-Fi services. All of this will become a part of an environment which you're building them, which gives them reliability, which gives them resiliency, which gives them scalability. So this is the part that I was talking about. So there's a area which talks from a transformation perspective. So which means, so some of you, if you see that your customer is actually struggling with multiple service providers, this could lead in terms of consolidation, both in terms of the cost elements and also in terms of the resilience of the environment, and plus the manageability part of it. So all of this comes with software-defined elements. Then, like as I said, that the surface attack layers are increasing, so security becomes important. Security, you can think from two parts of it. I'll break this SASE part for you in two ways. One is an access part of it, how it is getting accessed, and the other is the secure edge part of it. So just to simplify it for you, so these are the two elements that you have to see: who's accessing the system of your customers and where they're facing those threats and challenges. And second is in terms of, because now a lot of things are happening because of the experience part of it. Lot is going at the edge. The compute is going at the edge, the power is going at the edge, all of those things, and you will see this happening with AI more and more power will come to these kind of things. So therefore, this today, if you talk to network and security part of it, earlier network was network, security was security. Now because of these things like a network segmentation conversation, this has become intertwined. If I have to change network, or if one of your customer has to change network and go through all those challenges, and if he ignores security, then for sure the organization will face some kind of a threat and attack where everything will be compromised. So therefore, these elements and these discussions are important. This again, Sify is very distinctly placed in bringing these components back to you in terms of overall manageability, and from a cost perspective also, the way we have deployed our solutions is that your customers can go on, they can pay as they scale, or they can have a CapEx model also. So depending on somebody who's wanting to try it and say that, okay, Sify has invested, let me use Sify's infrastructure, central infrastructure, and build on top of it, you have these options available. And then we have the collaboration platforms, which is from the communication as a service platforms available to you, and also the video conferencing elements. We work with a lot of OEMs in that space, and we can bring you a consolidated environments. We are actually experiencing some of these elements with some of you. The discussions are on, and we are doing. And of course, because the edge is becoming important, IoT is becoming important, mobility is becoming important, the manageability of all these projects, which will be large-scale projects, are also part of what we do. I gave a brief view of SD-WAN. I'm not going into details of this and not bore you with this, but I gave you a gist of what it means. This is the overall automation, centralized management, reporting, analytics, etc., which becomes very, very important elements of how a performance-based routing happens. Now, this is from the SASE part of it. I gave you a simplified view. One is access. And why access? Because today, the users could be in a cafe of your customer's organization, could be in office, could be traveling, could be at the airport. So that opens a whole layer of attack points for you, for your organization. So how do you understand that and tackle that is one part of it, which it actually shows. And further, it could be factory operations, it could be IoT. Now, OT coming in place, the devices that are coming in place, there are millions of devices actually. So if you were to look at a very simple example, we all probably drive cars, petrol or diesel, we go. Organizations who are actually doing this, how many attack points are open? They have IoT devices at the petrol pumps. This is one example. Similarly, on a utility side, the power companies, etc. So look at this attack surface layers which is increasing. I'm not even talking about consumer-driven industry like a BFSI or a telecom. The challenges are further and beyond. So this is what this set of portfolio will address. Now, another example, let me give you. Some of your customers are expanding. So let's say, I'll give you some examples from BFSI in the next couple of slides, more because, again, we are today here in the financial capital of the country. So what branch in a box kind of a solution would do is when somebody is expanding the branches in a big way. Example, one of the private banks wants to expand their branches by 30%. And they actually had this target last year. They wanted to increase 30% so that they can be as the size of the public sector largest bank in the country. So if that kind of an environment, and typically in their organization, they were okay with around 200 branches, 300 branches opening in a year. Suddenly 10x that growth. Now that 10x of a growth in a secure environment, in a fast environment, these kind of solutions in terms of the network, in terms of application-centric networks, how they grow, and how is the security of the entire element is taken in. So this has several built-up components which can lead right from just the network to actually the surveillance in the branch to actually having the other things like an ATM box, etc., communicating back onto the core data centers. All of those elements, and also the internet banking part if they want to have some part of it coming into that environment. Let me extend this further beyond just the banking. So similarly, like a retail organization, like a Pizza Hut, there are point of sales machines. How does that entire transformation of what they use? Or today, if you want to go and walk down into McDonald's, you'll see a lot of experiential elements that they have added. 2 years back, you would have gone, and you go today, you'll see a huge difference in terms of what you experience at the table itself in terms of what you're ordering. Now, all of those things, these kind of solutions can enable very, very strongly. So this is a little heavy slide, but the takeaway is simple, that there's a framework, there's an architecture which helps you do this, and you have observability, you have multiple alarms. So let me give you an example. A bank, the largest bank, let's say 23,000 branches are there on the network side of it, and they would have, let's say, 5x or 10x of those of network devices. If something goes wrong in the system, there will be probably 1 lakh or 2 lakh of alarms start raising in a single day. Now, how would, without automation, without these frameworks, somebody from the network side manage it? So this is the problem that we have helped solve, SBI. We manage their NOC completely. I'm giving you some examples you can take away. This can apply to various industries. So this is the entire aspect of how it does. And like I said, we are the manager of very, very big networks. So we have a portal called as Akash portal. It has integrations with multiple IT service management platforms. It gives you a complete reporting, dashboarding, all of that for your end customers, so that when you're selling Sify services to them, it is not a headache to you. It is all visible to them in a single pane of window. There are predictive models available, observability available, so that your customers are happy. So you are happy, and we are happy because you are important to us. So these are the frameworks that's been created from that perspective. It brings in the end user experiences on. This is just a quick view in terms of, for some of you who may not know what we do on the network side of the services. Like I was saying, mission critical applications, mission critical workloads work on top of our networks. Today, nearly 55% of the transactions on the banking side that you do flows through Sify's network. I think the screen is gone. It has come back. So what I've been saying throughout this 10-15 minutes that I talked about, the core is innovation. We've been innovating. Network is one of the most important core of what Sify does and is building up. This becomes a very strong backbone for our country. We have a lot of big public infrastructure which runs on Sify's network. This is a little outdated slide. All the numbers that are shown have grown by around 1.35 times of what we are showing. And we are also in the managed services, Gartner managed services quadrant. So therefore, when you're talking to the customers and when you talk about us, it'll be easier for you to convince from a Gartner perspective that we are also part of the managed services. So before I end, I'll just talk to you about this aspect, and this will probably some of the questions that was asked to me before the session started. I just put this slide so that it'll give you a glimpse of what it is. So essentially, if you were to look at which industries touch almost everybody in the country, thanks to the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana and all, I think its percolation of banking services is nearly equal to telecom or more. So therefore, two industries, that one is BFSI and the other is telecom. This is what reaches to most parts of our country and nearly covers all the pin codes. I'll say beyond the pin codes also, because pin codes were devised by Britishers. Things have changed. Our country has grown far beyond, and we have moved far beyond pin codes. So therefore, bringing this example, which gives you the strength of Sify's network of what we are serving. Today, on the payment services, part of the transactions that happen, that are completely multi-managed by Sify, which essentially means that any bank that's going into the RBI infrastructure for this part of the services is going through Sify's infrastructure and also our partner infrastructure where we are managing that. And that's very complex solution, probably one of the most complex and resilient in the world, that's giving 5 nines to these banks that are coming in. So that's one such example. The second such example, being in Bombay, most of you would know that the entire National Stock Exchange network is completely managed by Sify. In fact, the POP architecture on which they work is managed by Sify, and Sify has uniquely designed this for National Stock Exchange. So much so that there are a lot of rewards, awards, etc., and worldwide talks that are going on. We made a network equitable possible latency for most of the brokers there. So this was one of the key elements that that exchange wanted, to bring equitable experience for everybody. Again, I am bringing from an experience perspective, because there, a microsecond latency impacts big time. To the top banks being there, and to the entire infrastructure that we have, and that's the trust that this industry has placed. This is just one example. You will find similar examples in retail, in healthcare, in manufacturing, etc. And then some of you have helped us to crack some of your customers' relationship. And thank you so much for that, and thank you for listening to me. I hope this session was useful for you. And with that, thank you so much.